One of the success stories from the old Vienna is joining us here, Jim Infantino. Jim, how are you?
I'm doing well, Robert. How are you doing?
Tell me about how the old Vienna played a role at the mid '80s up into the turn of the century when that New England was a haven. You were living in New York and brought your way up here to play, right?
Yeah, I was actually a little different than that. I was in Philadelphia the year after I got out of college, and I was on a train going to New York, which is where I grew up. I was going to visit my folks, and I ran into the a woman who I think was managing um, some artists here in Boston, but she had written the music to Zoom. And I, immediately was a big fan. I was like, you wrote a zip code that I can't forget. That's masterful songwriting. And she said, well, how's Philadelphia for the songwriting scene? I said, it's not, not great. And she said, well, you got to come to Boston. You got to see what's happening in Boston. So I did. I moved out of Philly and I got my stuff up to Charlestown and I lived with some friends. I didn't have a car, so I had rented a car to move my stuff. And I ran into Jan Luby when I was out busking on the street. I ran into Chris Chandler, and I started getting rides out to the scene that was happening. And the scene that was happening was the Old Vienna Coffee House in Westboro. That was actually where I ran into Brian Dozer and John Svetke and Ellis Paul. And for some reason, we hit it off, or they thought I was really strange what I was doing, and they talked to me, and I talked to them, and I just met so many great people out there. I met Tom Keene, I met Mike Duffy, so many other great songwriters, and the thing that just knocked me out was the quality of the songwriting, the quality of the playing, and that was where I realized I had made a really great decision not to be in kind of random rock clubs in Philadelphia, but part of a real not, I mean, yeah, you could call it a folk scene, and I think I never felt totally comfortable with the folk scene, but the songwriting scene, I really felt at home in, and that's what got me really excited.
The End Construction Group is one of the biggest success stories from the old Vienna of all those years in the open mic. And you guys were able to take that nationally. You guys kind of went and toured in different iterations of that, but together as a four individual artists in a move of marketing genius, I think.
There were there weren't that many of these songwriter in the round groups, and I know when we got to Nashville, they were a little confused. They were like, "Are you like a musical group?" And we're like, "No, we're all individual songwriters. We're all individually ambitious, right?" So, which was just confusing. But our show down at the Bluebird was a huge success. People really loved it because it was just one great song after another, and um, and so we met Neil Fagan, who ran the club at the time, and he took us around to the local bigwigs, and we talked to a lot of people. I was introduced to Del Bryant, who ran BMI at the time, and yeah, it was a really exciting scene, and it was really great because they were like, "Wait, you're from Boston?" So we were like ambassadors from the Northeast, down below the Mason-Dixon line. And
Oh, that's fantastic.
yeah.
The the old Vienna gave launch to a lot of other folks that you've maintained pretty close friendships with over all these years, have you not?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I saw David Wilcox for the very first time at the old Vienna. And I can't forget it. I'll never forget it. He got up and it was as if like suddenly he was levitating and fire sprang out of his ears. It just was something like you couldn't believe the way his mastery of the guitar and the voice. It was a magical spell. Everybody was rapt. And I think I went up and said something stupid to him after that. And then I think at some point I said, if you ever need a place to stay in Boston, and he took me up on it. I was living in Cambridge at that time, and he stayed with me on his way down to do some shows at Club Passim, and we've been really good friends ever since. Well, Dar Williams and I were hitting open mics together when she was just starting out, and we would go out to the old Vienna together. I think we even had a couple of songs that we would do as a duo,
Mm.
which was kind of funny. Um, and usually the more humorous stuff. And then she and I eventually went on tour together. There were just a lot of people who came through that just they just knock me out? And sometimes they'd either be the featured member of the open mic or they would just have shown up to play at the open mic. Mike Duffy just blew my doors off, every single time. You knew the joke was coming and still he made it work. Um,
Yes,
yeah,
he did.
yeah. Don White, Jan Luby herself, who was my ride most of the time. It was a special place. And that came down to you and to Tim. I mean, you set the tone in that place, really, even more than Tim, really. But Tim did the booking and and you were the MC. And you made everybody feel welcome and special. And that was awesome. I remember feeling a little too comfortable and drinking too much beer there.
I was privileged to be a part of an amazing scene that we were all a part of at that time. It was special.
Hey, everybody, this is Jim Infantino from the band Jim's Big Ego and the writer of the song Stress. And I hope to see you out in Hopkinton, Massachusetts, August 17th. And while you're here, why don't you drop a couple of bucks in the donation jar?
I'm addicted to stress, that's the way that I
Thanks.
get things done. If I'm not under pressure, then I sleep too long. And I hang around like a bum, and I think I'm going nowhere, and that makes me nervous. I'm addicted to stress, it's the way that I get things done. If I'm not under pressure, then I sleep too long. And I hang around like a bum, and I think I'm going nowhere, and that makes me nervous. Everybody's out to get me, but I feel alright.